All right, let me just make sure it actually is live. Yes, we are. And welcome back. Thanks for joining us again for another week of Jim Cramer versus technical analysis, where we pit him against pretty much everything he says using technical analysis to back up our plays. So how's the week been for you, man? It's been pretty interesting with a lot of range play on Spy, but we're about to break a range, I think, and maybe we'll get a trend going into January.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think everyone's on vacation, but see what we can get. Even with Jim on vacation, it's been a great week. He's negative on China. China's ramping, and he's negative on the not make money stocks. Those have been ramping. So far so good.
Sweet. I know last week he was saying to buy Google, and SGM went short on it, and doing good now. It's finally taking shape. Had a couple outside targets on it, but I mean, just looking at this, that looks a little bit bearish. We love these rounding tops. Sometimes they just break support and rip to the downside. So, I mean, the Mag 7 and friends, as you were saying, they look like they might be a little bearish going into the first month of the year at least. And outside of that, we're going to see some retail participation probably fall out of them anyway. So we got some bear
Yeah,
targets on some of those.
yeah. I mean, the theme that we're looking at going into next year, as I told you before we went live, is short mag 7 and friends and in long everything else, especially the stocks that don't make any money that Jim hates.
Oh man,
If interest rates come down, if we have a rally, those things are going to ramp.
he was on a tear with his sell it list on the from the 21st. I mean, pretty much every one of them reversed and ran against him. So we can go into those as well, but I wanted to pick through some of the ones he was saying buy, and we were like, no. So Google is primarily one of them, and I was looking at this setup. We've got this pretty much liquidity range trading, and I mark out liquidity with these little gray boxes. I just pick off the wicks and be like, okay, well, there's sellers here and there's buyers here. All right, cool. So we're kind of hanging out in limbo, coming across the middle of where some of the buyers would be, and then look left to figure out where the next level is, and it kind of takes us to a target around 138 to 140 for good old Google here. And Jim was saying buy that last week from the 21st on, and sure he was right for a minute, but a couple days later, here we are going short. So yeah, half a kudo on the beginning and take it back now. So I guess we could call that a neutral for picking off of what Jimbo would say. And since he's on vacation, we can talk extra smack about him like we did last week. We had 100% that we did our review on from the week before. We nailed every call out, and that says a lot for technical analysis. And in spite of Cramer there going on all the fundamentals and the news and stuff, and maybe occasionally looking at a chart, he's kind of on the wrong side of a lot of stuff. That's why we're here. So we like to show technical analysis and pick off price targets. We like to take the trades and the ones that set up really nice from a technical standpoint versus anything Jim talks about bringing volume and participation into it. We make good plays.
Yep.
So come back and be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell because we do this every week and man, we've been killing it. With the exception, next week I'm gonna be on vacation, so I'll be back the week after and we'll go strong again on Thursdays. But check us out.
All right.
I think you guys
Jim
will
will
like
be
it.
back, so we'll have plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. And he's going to come back from vacation, so he's going to be a little hot. Now all of a sudden he's going to be firing off a bunch more stuff that we can go and scalp. So so far, Google looking like it's going to finish over just a little bit of a measured move down here to about the bear target. If it can't break through this range with any real force here today, it could bounce off of this and retrace. So, like if you're already short from yesterday, you're doing pretty good, but just kind of be aware of this zone. It may change directions on you, at least briefly, maybe retrace some of it. But for all intents and purposes, it opened high, bounced down to the low, gave half back, and it's not exactly setting up a reversal here. This is looking like range, And if this, then that just kind of plays in like your computer programming. Same with your trade plan. If it starts to break out of this range, take your profit off from your short from yesterday. If it starts to break down through this range, game on, baby, keep it short. So that's where I'm standing with it. I'm going to kind of go down the list of stuff from the 21st and just kind of pick off some of the follow through because, Jim's on vacation. Got to go on something, right?
Yep.
So he also said buy NVIDIA. Oh boy. I think a lot of retail is saying, man, that's really expensive. I don't know if I want to buy NVIDIA way up here. Well, kind of been bouncing off that 500 a few times in a row here, and third time's a charm. Can it break it? Maybe, but it's been trading in range, and it was a pretty good short from, even on the 21st, it kind of gave us a little bit of accumulation to maybe stay short, but now it kind of broke back into the upside on this. So can we maybe look for another short later if it rejects this range? Sure. I think you were short on that for a brief period with SGEM. I don't remember if it covered that one or not.
We're still short in SGEM.
Okay.
That 500 level looks like it's going to be not so simple to break through. So we'll see.
It's going to take some heat to get through that. I mean, there's going to be some very nervous hands in that because that is like an expensive stock for retail to trade. It's expensive enough for institution to trade that, and everybody's looking at the same chart and looking at that $500 bill going, man, I don't know. I always like to take these further out and look at a daily chart, and you see this giant broadening pattern. Something's got to give eventually, and it'll either start to compress into a narrowing pattern, and maybe by Q4 we'll come to a point of inflection where it'll either break out or break down. It's probably going to be another really hot Q4 earnings announcement week going into the end of Q1 here. I think that's going to be a big play in whether we're going to have a bullish or bearish trend into the next year. And a lot of the stuff is pretty top heavy. So, a lot of the Mag 7 is anyway. And this is definitely one of them. So I can agree. We would be wise to be taking opportunities to scalp short positions on this thing for sure. Watch this range though. I mean, if it does break that $500 bill with some force, it can certainly take off and run away from us. There's nothing stopping it from doing that. But in the meantime, I like the short scalps because they're fast. And that was one hell of a range bar right there. So definitely love those. Can you call this a cup and handle? You can kind of look at it like that. But this is going to be the rim line. If it can't break that, cup and handles can fail. So, the one for SPY worked out great.
And often do.
Yeah. That's kind of a.
If anyone. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that's kind of a statistical thing. Like you look at the cup and handle probability of follow through, and it's like your flag by comparison is the 60-40. I think of cup and handles like 50-50 and sometimes the other way, like 60-40 downside.
If you're a cup and handle can slim guy, look up Gil Morales. He used to work with Bill O'Neill, and he's got a lot of interesting criticisms on the methodology. So, not saying it's bad or good, but if you're following a methodology, I think you'd want to hear the other side of it.
Absolutely. Good plan. And I've heard the other side of this too. Like I know that sometimes, quite often I hear it, and especially in retail, where they look at the cup and handle as a reversal pattern, as in a bottoming pattern. It's not. It's a continuation pattern, and continuation patterns are just as much of a accumulation before a break as anything. So this accumulation, in spite of it being a little rounding bottom here, it's still in a range, and this is the range. It's going to be half the previous trend as the low. Pretty simple, textbook, and anywhere between the high and that low is going to be fair range to trade. So until this breaks resistance, it's not a reversal, it's not a continuation pattern, it's an accumulation pattern. So scalp it appropriately. It'll give you some room to move. That's where the price action is, and that's a chart where you find some great setups that you can obviously pick off the trades on. moving forward, the next one he was talking about was IBM, and that's always kind of been a hard stock to trade. But occasionally, I've in the years past, I've liked to take some of these short positions on it. But dude, this thing's parabolic as all get at on a weekly chart, and it's completed a beautiful 1-for-1. It's in a range. I don't know, man. That's looking a little like a triple top on a daily. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it also it looks like a meme stock, and it's IBM. So I mean,
Very true.
I don't think I'd be buying this up here. I mean, it's gone up what 30 points in 2 months.
Yeah, it's been ridiculous. I mean, just a hell of a run. And it's got to give some back. It kind of looks like that chart where it wants to give half that range back. So we can pick off some return targets if if this actually turns out to be a triple top reversal and it starts to break down. Look for support around 160, and if it breaks that, the target of 155 is pretty obvious. So
Yep.
this is definitely one to be a little concerned about going into the next year. So I'm going to kind of mark it close in that range and keep an eye on it. In the meantime, it's got decent trading range. We've got some liquidity up here where there's some sellers, and we got some buyers down here. The buyers appear on the daily chart. I look for those wicks. The sellers, not so much. So the sellers kind of pick off on a 2-hour chart. So it's looking like there's more sellers than buyers on the short term. So a quick scalp to the downside. Look for a test of 160. But again, this range can break. It can go higher, but for now, I'm looking for the little scalps on the bearish positions from here. And if that plan never sets up, I don't have to trade it. That's the whole thing. Discipline yourself. Take some trades that are obvious. Skip over the ones that aren't. The next one he talked about, MDB. I've never traded that one before, but I know a ranging stock when I see one, and same setup. And now we've got a very tacky cup and handle, if you want to call it that, on the 2-hour chart. But the daily chart tells me otherwise. It's just a big wedge, and it's trapped in a range. So typically these will end up being a reversal, and it'll eat the range bar from the day. And at support level down here, about 407, maybe extend down a little bit further to 406 is very reasonable if it starts to break down in this trend. And
407.66 is the 20-day EMA.
Yeah, it's right in there. And that's it here, the blue one. That makes a reasonable target if this reversal follows through. And this is kind of another one. It's a candle pattern where people see these. It's an evening star in the making. Just be aware that it's already given about half of this back. So this is the first bar in that, and it wicked exactly half back and kind of found some buyers and stretched back up. But now I'm looking for some profit taking from these buyers, and this is where we're going to start seeing that. And if this thing gets rejected once more up here, it'll follow through and hit that halfway mark again, maybe close around that level. And in the next couple of days, if it breaks that level, we know where the bear target is. So definitely a decent trading stock. I have yet to trade it, but I went and I doped all these charts up this morning and realized, hey man, there's some good setups for follow through. And even though this was a week ago on the 21st, we still have some trades to be made on these. So everything we were looking at for call outs from the week before, we nailed them all. This is the time for follow through where we can start seeing some of those other setups that we were waiting for a trade to appear to us are starting to follow through. So yeah, definitely some good trades on the horizon here, and I think going into January we're going to see some good volatility. That's just an absolute given. I'm not doubting that volatility coming.
I hope so.
One of your favorites to short, I think that was really profitable for SGen was it FedEx? Man,
Yeah.
woo
I mean, that was a great move. I mean, we're out of it now. We took the profits and ran.
Heck yeah, but that was textbook, man. Big old 1-for-1 up, give half back, nailed it, and then some. And pretty easy to find those marks. Now we're looking for follow through on this thing. Maybe we'll get a little bit back towards running around 260, 250 or so, but just be cautious. This is looking like people want to sell it here again. So this is one hell of a drop bar, but this is starting to resemble a bit of a bear flag here. So if it can't break out and get into this liquidity zone here that I have set up from the measured move, look out because it'll go lower. But in the meantime, I might start saying the other way on this thing, because if you have a
Yeah,
big
I
move
mean,
like that,
I'd buy it here. I wouldn't. I mean, it's bumping up against its 50-day. If it breaks through the 50-day, I mean, I'd buy it here and look for some sort of gap fill.
it's got a good outside chance of running, and we got a couple range bars to boot. Let me strike a couple pivots on that. It might be a good bull swing, and then if it starts to reject one of those, we can take it bearish too. We can trade both. But the follow through looks great. I mean, that was awesome. Now, yeah, there are some sellers here, but if we can break this level here, we can start setting up for these pivot pushes pretty easy. And about half this bar is even a good extension. Whenever you see a big range bar like that, they love bouncing back to half. This is dead cat bounce until it breaks that level, and then it can be a full half back return. So I like the short term bull move. It's got to get through some sellers, but I think we could do it. The old dead cat bounce, man. That's one of my favorite plays from back in my penny stock days. In fact, earlier in the week, I found a couple of them, early this week, middle of last week, I found a couple of them that were just massive sell-offs, like 50, 60, 70% drops, and they bounced back and gave some excellent bull trades. And
Right.
one of them I racked 100% return on in like literally just under an hour, which is pretty phenomenal. So when you see these big drops like that, even if it's a large cap like FedEx, I mean, you can usually see a good couple of scalp maneuvers on the way back up. But just note that when the word dead cat bounce comes in, it's the little twitch you get. There's going to be sellers at whatever the last range bar was, and there it was right there. Pretty easy. So look for them to give up selling at that point, and maybe we get some bullish momentum to run up and test resistance, pivot, half back. Very probable. I think I'm gonna watch that one a little closer. I wasn't interested in it at first, but now I am.
Mhm.
I can change on the drop of a hat, man. Just all these years learning how to change with the leaves and adapt to market conditions have taught me well, I guess. One of my favorite ones that I've been messing with on Jim, when he said sell it, I said buy it, and it worked out great. It's PXD. That thing's been a monster, but now it's kind of set up in range again. So we're looking for follow through. He was saying, sell it around here, and well, on the day he said that, I think it was the 21st or the 20th. Can't remember.
Yeah, we're out of this one just because of the whole merger thing. You never know how that's going to go.
True.
But yeah, he did say sell it.
But we caught the bounce, we got the buy, and we went right to the target and rejected that range. Now we went back. We had a nice little 1-for-1 on the 2 hour that was playing out. That was pretty easy. And there's your primary, there's your secondary. That target's nailed. But we got some buyers possibly down here. But yeah, with the merger, it's not worth the risk. But the chart's looking like big old accumulation. Break either side of this range, we get a decent trade. But you don't want to play in the middle too much. It's kind of risky, especially when there's some merger news on the horizon. Pretty much done with that, but that was a fun one to scalp. And I remember before he said sell it back here too, and that was an easy one as well. So, double bottom. Anyway, I'm probably going to sit on my hands with this one too. I'm not going to mess with it until I see what happens with this merger or whatever the hell goes on. But this range will eventually condense and break out, and it could probably give us, look for towards the end of the week next week, and we could see an outside move come on with this thing. So don't take it off your watch list, but definitely sit on your hands, take your profit, and keep it. Don't give it back. Pfizer was another one he was saying, and that was a no-brainer. Easy looking setup. We had the primary down here. He was saying sell, sell, sell through this whole mess, and we're looking at being buyers. We ate that entire range bar and set up the primary. And now we're at that range bar's pivot, tested as support this morning. And we watched it open up this morning in the group. Bounce play right up back into that level. And look, gave us a half move into that block on the secondary move. So if we can break this pivot, we can finish this move and look for a target up around 29, 30 bucks. For now, the scalp, we already did very well with that this morning, but we're looking for an outside move if it finishes this play. So this is another one where we had a great return from, doing the opposite of Jim. So kudos to us.
So we're not in Pfizer and SGIM, but one that he came out negative on and has gapped up since is Moderna. So we are in Moderna.
mDNA, I think it is.
mRNA.
mRNA, that's right.
So I think, I don't remember the exact date, but pretty much it was right around before that gap up.
Nice moves. I missed that one.
Luckily I didn't.
I used to trade this a bit in the bearish trades that we've had for a long time now, but I was not paying attention when that reversal happened. Dang.
But I mean, these high volatility names, when Jim comes out with a sell, that's usually a gift from God.
Yeah, I'd say. And it almost acts like a meme stock in that way. This would be like Reddit versus Jim Cramer. So, get enough apes in the mix. Yeah, we all know what's up. And that would have been a great trade. I'm sad I missed this one, but it's pretty evident that it's about time to take profit on this now and wait for the next setup to play out, and it'll give you one. That's one heck of a strong trend. So let's see if we can pick off a couple targets and maybe make some somewhat call outs on this thing. I can see it made a really nice move up here. Did that more or less. Now we're looking for a return to the middle, somewhere around $96 and a quarter or so. I'd love to see it pull back, but it can still finish this move. So looking like a good scalping stock, but if you were taking that in some size and taking a swing on it, it was a good idea to take profit in the pre-market this morning. From here, follow through on this thing. It kind of looks like it's done its job. I think we wait for the next setup on this one from where I'm standing. Could give us a decent one. Another rotation that kind of happened was QCOM, he was saying to sell. Qualcomm was quite the mover and still hasn't finished that outside move. But man, look how ballistic this trend is.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's another one. I mean, up 40 points in 2 months, and it's Qualcomm.
Yeah.
So I'd be very careful of that.
Definitely. And I've got this move up here. It can complete it, but I always look for liquidity, and whenever I see a big candle wick at the top or bottom of a trend, even if it's short term, I always like to pay attention to it. So look for a good chance of finding sellers right in this range where we're at. So I'm going to mark that in orange so it stands out. If you're going to see sellers, that's half of this trend back. That's about where that sold off here. I would say we're pretty much done being bulls on this thing for a little while to the next setup, especially with a parabolic trend like that. I mean, that's just crazy. On the outside chance that it accumulates here and breaks out even higher than that, sure, we can take a bull trade from that break. But for now, I'm in a point where I would be waiting for a better setup.
Yep.
Keep that profit. Don't give it back. RDNT was another one of my favorites to trade. And this one was pretty obvious to me. Done deal, man. We nailed that one. Now we're giving half of this thing back. We've done that. What's next? Do we follow through? Maybe. Let's see what happens with this range. But
yeah, I mean, it found support here. Could it's run up, but it looks like it wants to make another move up.
We've got kind of a pivot point. It's about half of our short-term measured move set up, the 1-for-1. If it breaks out of that, and this is where the previous high was, about 38.84, I think was the peak, so about $38 looks like the floor of that thing. Again, I could take and stretch out that liquidity. There'll be some sellers there. There were already. But if we hold this halfway point, we'll finish the move again to the top of the secondary. If we get outside of that, man, there's a much bigger move to pay attention to, and that thing could definitely break out to $45. But just be a little nimble with the setup on this thing. I think it's going to give us probably a good swing coming up in the next couple months here. As far as profit takers, I think they're out of it here. So maybe we'll accumulate and stay on top of this pivot and give us the outstretch into the first week of January to hit that $38 target again. Definitely an easy trade on that one. That was a pretty obvious one. And I like to, give credit where credit's due, and price action certainly conquered Jim on this one. But this is one where it was so obvious, it was easy. So that's what I kind of wanted to touch on is like, rather than trying to force your logic to spot a pattern on any particular equity, if the chart doesn't look like it has an obvious setup, be sure to skip it. Be disciplined to just make sure you don't get roped into hoping and your trade plan follows through and forcing it to work on a chart when there's so much stuff like this. It's just absolutely obvious. You can throw a dart at it and win. That's the stuff you really want. Find the charts that really make the most sense to you and trade those. Don't try to force a setup that you might think you see on another chart, if you know what I mean. An important lesson we've been teaching forever. And today we just wanted to touch on that. Moving on, one I didn't take a trade on was VEEV. I didn't like the setup on that one, I don't think. And it was another obvious one I should have taken, but the gappy stuff, I tend to be a little leery on. But yeah, I missed an opportunity. He said sell it. It went right back to the mean between these two moves. And now we've got an outside chance of continuing a breakout to run and give half this back. So we could see this go, up to like 205, 206 in the near future, I think. But beware of this particular area. It's already filled its gap. We've already made the play on Jim's words. This is the midpoint, and it can be a make it or break it situation here. So pay attention to where the buyers and sellers are at. They're pretty obvious. I'm going to take this little doji right here as a little seller liquidity zone. So for the day's target, day traders are pretty much going to nail this likely right up to the base of that, around 194 and some change. From there, wait till this liquidity zone gives you a decision to whether or not you're going to resume this trend or not. So if you haven't taken profit on this already, be a little cautious in this area.
Yeah, it's already filled the gap, but I mean, it is holding at the 200-day moving average, so you could use that as a stop if you wanted to go long.
Absolutely. That's a very reasonable play. And it's got potential to continue moving, or again, it can fill that gap twice. I've seen that before. So, this is where, yeah, definitely be very careful with this setup. But once it starts to present a breakout move, you can certainly take a nice trade on it. But it's getting ready. Give it some time here. In fact, it's made a nice one for one move from yesterday's price action. It nailed that. So sky's the limit, but this is the point where we're going to start seeing some things happen. And yeah, if it melts through this liquidity, sure, it can go higher, but swing trade it. Wait for this setup to give you the opportunity, I think. If you haven't gotten long on this already, this is where you're going to wait for a better setup. I like it though. We're doing pretty good with this price action stuff, I gotta say. Pinterest. That was one he was pounding the table and sell, or saying sell. If I remember right. Jeez, wrong one. Hitting my brain fade moment where I haven't eaten breakfast yet. I fast breakfast, I eat brunch. This is what happens. Brain don't work. All right.
Yep.
So, made a nice primary secondary move. I just drew the secondary box on this thing. Nailed that target pretty much. We're looking for a pullback here, but I think this thing could actually go a little higher. Looking left, we've got some key points here. There's accumulation in the weekly chart right here where we're at. That's happened. If it starts to break this range, that's a hell of a range bar to set up, and the peak of that would be a pivot about the middle of this whole trend. So this could be a good bull target at about 48 bucks or so, but there'll be plenty of scalping to do between now and then. And this range here is going to be tough to break out of. So look for range trades on this thing in the next few weeks. And then if it starts to trend, this bar is pretty easy to run. Short term, you could see $43 top of that bar, and outside move would be finishing the trend up to the previous high around previous high before it broke over, right in this range here around 48 bucks. So I'm looking for this range to break, I think, in the short term, and I'm going to probably say that, it's pretty obvious. We've come up quite a bit. We made the secondary move in 2 legs. Let's look for some liquidity in this range and watch this range for a break. It'll be pretty obvious. Look for the wicks. So this range will tighten up and eventually break, and the breakout move will either give you a nice move to finish the expected high, trend out of it, or it could break down and retest some support and give half this back. So, always split your boxes when you're drawing price action and look for targets. So bears have a target at 35. If this range breaks, they'll take profit around 36 or so and maybe swing this whole candle. Bulls have a target that is just above this range up into the $38, $39 range, and if it starts to trend, they're going to start looking for extensions out here, and then just look left. So there will be some good setups coming from this. Just kind of be patient on. Follow through is pretty much run its course. We went long when Cramer said sell. We did good. I'm taking profit.
I would take profits here too.
We can press that down. But it's an interesting stock to trade. I mean, it's one of the, I guess we can almost call it a meme stock. It certainly gets the volume, and whenever Jim makes a call on it, dude, of course, it's a great one. And that would have been an awesome one. I think you guys did that in S Jim, if I'm not mistaken.
No, pins, we've never been in an S Jim.
Okay. That was a personal one then. Still liked it. It was a good one. As far as the last thing on the list is just LRCX, and then maybe we can go over a couple of things we've been trading that are hot, if we have time. LRCX, I'm looking for the finishing move. Again, this is another one Cramer said sell. It's basically done its thing. Hasn't quite.
Yeah, it looks like pretty much everything else in this market right now.
Yeah, just ballistic parabolic moves from nowhere, and anytime Jim said sell it. Yep, got it. Yep. I'm kind of curious to see if this thing finishes the expected move, but it's got enough profit from day one. I think it's a good time to take profit on this one. Can it go higher? Sure, it can finish that move, but I mean, we're parabolic here, folks. This is one that's just been nuts. So definitely, don't feel bad if you leave money on the table from this thing. It's an $800 stock. Kind of, take your wins and keep them, because if this thing starts to rip the other way and start giving half this back, man, it'll happen fast. So short-term bear target probably about 765 if it rejects here. But if it continues, it can certainly go higher. But if you've got in this on the day that Jim said sell it, you might start considering some profit taking in this range. So definitely be cautious in this market as we turn the new year. Things are going to start to really move. If you think they're hot now, wait. This range is pretty easy, just like the last one we looked at with pins. Mark it out, figure out where the range is, and you can scalp the range for day trades, but if you're a swing trader, you're going to want to wait for this range to break before you take a position. So,
yep.
All we can say on that. You calling it at noon, or you got time for a couple? If you want to talk about a couple.
Yeah, no, I'm around.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I could take a quick look on a couple of my other favorite stocks. I've been kind of on the fence about Snap lately. It's stayed in this range for like ever, and I'm kind of looking at maybe converting to a synthetic position if this range doesn't break soon. If it breaks to the downside, I can certainly just call off the long equity or just let the covered call do its thing. Um, and maybe wait for selling another put on it. But at this point, I'm pretty much in the neutral zone. I'm just waiting for a break. Again, pretty much
Yeah.
everything else
I
we've
mean,
looked at.
it's as good as anything. I mean, it's pulled into the 10-day. It's, consolidated. I just, I'm having trouble buying anything up here. I just
Yeah,
need I need some sort of weakness to buy into. So, I mean, I'm sitting on a ton of cash.
yeah. Cash is a position too, they say, and I agree.
I mean, it's a painful position as we're melting up, but
Yeah,
I mean, I just can't. Everything's gone parabolic. I'm not going to be chasing anything.
no. I certainly wouldn't add here if you're not long already. And I've been long on this thing since $9.52, and I'm at the point where it doesn't owe me a dang thing. And can it go higher? Sure. I'm waiting for this range to break, but I'm prepared for if it doesn't. I can exit my positions and accumulate, or I can even trade it bearish. I don't have to take a bias to it from here. This is just accumulation to me. But man, it's been a great run. The only thing I would say is watch for the weekly range candle over here. This big bad boy over here from 527 to 22 there kind of tells me it's got potential to break out of this little accumulation here and eat half or whole candle. So that's why I marked it all out. If it fails, I don't have to let my heart break while my profits evaporate. I'm just going to bail out of that trade and start over, or maybe even take the opposite side of it. But today, it's been kind of bumping into that upper zone here, and if it can get some momentum going here, maybe we got a chance at being bulls on it. But for the time being, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm going to hang on to it for a little while longer and see what happens. But I'm very cautious with this range. Um, Lastly, just a quick thing. I always look it forward. That thing is going to give us some great options training coming in January, and we're going to start doing a lot of focus on that with the Bullish Bears group. And this is one of my favorite platforms to teach options trading from right here. And it's setting up to be a wild ride in January, I think. We've gone parabolic up from the bottom, we've had the strike and all that stuff. We're kind of at the midpoint from this whole trend. It's going to give us some great trading, whether it's going to be eating this whole trend back down to the bottom or running it back to the top. One way or another, it's got to go somewhere. It'll only take so long of accumulation before it breaks. So be looking for exciting moves on Ford if you're a Ford stock trader. And it's got so much options volume. There are many, many people trading options on this thing, even though it barely moves. It's really great to trade on or learn to trade options on. I love to teach with it. Anyway, I think that's about a wrap, man. We could probably call this off and get it back together next year. You
Sounds
know,
good to me.
time to take some time off and go spend time with family. Maybe have a good New Year's party, and don't get too crazy. Stay indoors, and have a good time. That's my plan anyway. So we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. And again, Matthew, I really appreciate being able to do this with you. I mean, this has been awesome. We've
Yeah, no, same here. This is fun.
been fun and profitable above all. We've got some great calls, and we just keep doing it. So if you're still listening to the broadcast by this time, tell your friends. We're going to do this every week. We keep doing this, and it's just been getting better and better and better, and more fun. And who doesn't like throwing shade at Jim Cramer? Come on. We enjoy it as much as you do, believe me. All right, then. Until
Yes,
then,
we do.
we'll see you next week. Have a great one, guys. Thanks again. Or not next week, the week after. You know what I mean.